Coach Kia hopping in this live session. I think we might have somebody in here already, but which is fantastic because today is just like an open Q&A session. What I wanted to do was walk through some of the actionable steps you could take or stick in gym membership if you do. Going to need one, but the key steps, the 3 key steps you need to implement any programming, they're absolutely vital. That you have to do. You have to decide to make these changes, implement them straight away. And that's how you're going to get the results. You got to have operating. You got to be doing these things because this was actually one of the posts that I put up is you got to have these things going on and then give you some tips, some tools, some insight that you can actually use and get you taking steps in the right direction. Okay. So what I wanted to go over is the other day in the tribe, I made this post. And this is why it's so key to me, is because exactly a year ago, this was my thing a year ago, my transformation. In the person right here, that's me. That's me. And this is just a year apart. But the changes happened subtly between here and here. So what were the 3 things? Did I have a workout program? Did I do my nutrition? Yes. But I had to really dive in and oversimplify it. I took a step back. I was like, what were the actual things that I did? If someone doesn't have a gym membership, someone doesn't want to do meal prepping, like, what is it? What are the basic philosophies that I did? What is this? What is the one thing that I did consistently between here and here? One, my lighting was better. I think I had a better camera at the time, but that's more for the dramatic part of it. Everybody wants that transformation. Everybody wants to go from A to B, but I broke it down. These are the 3 things that I did, regardless of what the approach is. These three non-negotiables had to stay true. And I call that, I got to come up with better marketing ways of saying this, but it really was to measure. I was like, I am going to make sure that I measure things, move more, have more movement in my day to day, but then more protein. So that was a big shift when it came to nutrition. And I'll dive into detail on each one. So when it comes to measuring, absolutely a non-negotiable. There is an old saying, if it can be measured, it can be managed. And you could apply this to anything in your life. So if this is, let's use money. Everybody knows what money is, but let's use this as money. If your number one thing in your budget, in your day-to-day is that, oh, I'd like to save more money. Okay, how much money do you have now? I don't know. How much money do you have coming in? How much money do you have going in? That's how you can figure out that's essentially what a budget is. And I want you to think of your body as the same thing. If you want to know where you're at and how much you're trying to save up for a vacation, to buy a car, whatever it is, you have to measure. If it can be measured, it can be managed. So by measuring it, the simple fact of measuring it alone allows you to start managing it. And the beautiful thing about weight is just the act of looking at it, just the act of consciously measuring it, you will begin to lose weight. It's because you're going to be measuring it soon, but it also lets you look. And in the back of your mind, all right, shoot, I'm going to measure myself tomorrow. Should I eat this? That was the big thing that made a huge change for me, is that I knew I had to measure it. I knew where I was. I knew I didn't want to be there anymore. And the same thing with your finances. I know I have to have $1 million saved up to go to Disneyland because that's what Disneyland costs nowadays. And I'm not going to get it if I don't start squirreling away some money, if I don't start adding some money here, removing it from here. So it's a really good way to think about your weight. And so you have a budget when it comes to your weight. We have what's called your basal metabolic rate, or your basic metabolic rate. All that essentially is saying is that to live day to day, for your body to function, there are certain energy requirements, and that's all the basal metabolic rate is. So what that states is your body needs energy for your heart to pump, for your eyes to blink, for you to walk, for you to breathe. All those things that you do day to day, you don't have to think about doing them. They just take place, requires energy. Okay. I like the law of thermodynamics. It's like you can't store energy, just convert from one type to the next. So the food you eat, the exercise you do, all that is added to that budget. But by figuring out what your baseline is, all right, figuring out your budget, I need to know what I'm making on my income. Then I figure out my expenses. And if you're negative in that balance, if you're trying to save, you're going to need to make the adjustments. You're going to need to make more money, or you need to stop spending so much money. Renee, I hope you're listening to that. If you're finding that your bank account is short every month, then you got to cut out the Netflix, you got to cut out the McDonald's, whatever it is, that extra money expenditure. That's how one would go about adjusting that. So when it comes to your weight loss goals, if you don't measure, you will not manage. And it's literally the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Weight loss, nutrition, all this is no different, but this is one of the fundamental, foundational, essential things you have to do. Measure it. When it comes to your weight, get your body weight, measure your waist, measure your body fat percentage, bone density, labs, everything. The more measuring metrics you have, the more you can manage. And that's exactly what I did here. Like a week or two later, and I've had my annual physical at work where they do that. They like poke, prod, scope, check everything out. And then you get a nice little handout. You get a little sheet that's got all your results on it, and it tells you what your comparison is from last year. It's also like your finances. At the end of the year, you'll file stuff with Uncle Sam, and they'll tell you if you owe him money or if he owes you money, and you have a receipt. You have this ongoing thing. They can also say, hey, from last year, you actually made more money, so you got to pay me more taxes. That's the setup. I'm using that as an analogy. Your body should be no different. I feel like I hammered that one on the head, but that was part one of part three, things that you need to have as non-negotiables to be successful. The next thing I implemented, Coach Kia implemented between here and there, is to move. Now, what kind of movement is going to be highly specific to you? But to break it down, make it simple, is that I made movement a priority in my day-to-day. No excuses. Everybody loves taking a day off, loves being comfortable. And that's part of being human, is that humans love repetition. We love what's familiar. We are creatures of habit. Have you ever heard that? It's because that's comfortable. We know it works. We know how the outcome's going to be. And change is inevitable, one, but change is also very scary. If I'm going to be changing what I'm doing, well, I'm comfortable right now. I don't want to change that. And that was a conversation I had to have with myself, is that, all right, the one thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to move. I'm not going to sit here like a fat ass and not do anything. A million things I can be doing. I'm sitting here. I need to prioritize my moving. And you do a couple things when you prioritize movement, is you get rid of that lost time. It really is wasting time. If you're sitting there and you're doing that, something that's not productive, it's not adding to your overall goal. And you're also finding more, boredom is the devil's workshop. Idle hands is the devil's workshop. Idle hands, idle time. And by prioritizing movement, I would stay busy enough to where I wouldn't fall into the repetition. I'm sitting here, I'm bored, back to my habits, grab a box of donuts. I'm going to eat this entire box of marshmallow cereal. Dang, I just told myself, that's my stuff right there. Anything s'mores, anything peanut butter, I'm eating it. But that's what I would fall into. So that's what it is. Like, all right, so sitting here, I'm just going to go out and walk. I'm going to go out and mow the lawn. I'm going to go hang out with the kids. Anything, get my mind off of that so I don't fall back into that constant cycle of ending up back to square one. That was my second non-negotiable, and it has to be. You have to prioritize movement. It's got a plethora of benefits that come with it. And I want you to think about a time when you just felt like crud, had nothing else to do, and you were at that fork in the road. I could either go work out, go for a walk, go shopping, go do something productive, or I could sit here and watch Netflix, watch YouTube, watch the Instagram reels, flood my endorphins with happiness. But then you know how that ends. Like, at the end of that, you're like, shit, I've been doom scrolling for 5 hours. I could have learned a whole nother skill set in 5 hours. And then you get back to feeling sorry for yourself. It's that whole cycle. So by prioritizing movement is going to do a lot when it comes to what you're measuring, and they all play together. And by moving more, you're extending more calories. And in the long run, over a long period of time, if you stay consistent, you start losing numbers there. Okay. And so when I bring this back to that analogy of money, if on this portion of it, okay, I am going to cut unnecessary spending. That is my number one motivation, because I'm trying to make my budget, because I measured it. Now I'm managing it. I'm going to stop wasteful spending, or I'm going to do the side hustle and then make more money. And that's how I'm going to pay for this $1 million Disney trip. That would be the second component of it, because you need to make an adjustment somewhere else. So by doing that, you're adding to your caloric burn, AKA your savings account for Disneyland. That's how you should think of it, because those have to be in place. Those have to be set. The other thing, my 30 or 40 load, but this is the last M in the 3-step non-negotiables, is more protein. And let me explain. So there are 3 macronutrients that everybody talks about. You've probably heard of them: protein, fat, carbohydrates. And they all are the 3 main components that power your body. And I want you to think about the macronutrients being, I like using analogies. So like a car, think of it like a car. Your macronutrients would be like the gasoline you put in the car. You need gasoline for that engine to operate, for you to get from point A to B, get from home to work, work to home, and eventually from home to Disneyland for that very expensive trip. The macronutrients is going to be what powers the vehicle, what powers your motor. The micronutrients are your vitamins and minerals, all that. I want you to think of that separately, but that's going to tell you how well that engine runs. So if I'm driving some fancy car that requires high octane gas, but I'm putting very low quality gas in it, it's still getting gas. You're still getting that macronutrient, but it's going to dictate how well that operates and runs. That's the easiest way to think about it. And so by prioritizing protein out of all those macronutrients, it is the most satiating. That's a fancy word for saying keeping you full. Also, protein is one of the main components that powers muscle restoration, protein synthesis. I'm adding that valued muscle that everybody wants. Protein is going to be the main driver of that. Recoverability. Coach Key is getting old. One of the things I prioritize is rest and recoverability. So if you don't have enough protein on board and you're trying to recover, it's like I said, you put that low octane gas in the high performing vehicle, it's not going to run efficiently. So by hitting the protein markers, you're going to be able to recover, stay fuller longer, so you don't fall for that s'more box of cereal like Coach Q would always do. Difference between this guy and that guy is that I did start prioritizing protein, stayed fuller longer, kept me from giving into cravings, kept my movement, kept me busy. And by setting it, also when it comes to your gasoline, you have different octanes and you have different levels. You have, all right, I got a 10-gallon tank, I got whatever. When it comes to protein, you want to aim for that 1 gram per body pound. So if a 200-pound man like myself, my goal is to hit 200 grams of protein. Theoretically, if you're in a build-up program, you're going to want it a little bit higher, but set it at 1. That makes it easy. Take away the math. The math is just not mathing for me sometimes. So nice round numbers works well. 200. And this was the hack that I use, is that I implement supplementation. Protein shakes. The average scoop of protein is only about 24, 25 grams of protein. Wake up in the morning, have the 2 scoops of protein, banana, ice, a little bit of light milk. Boom, that's 50 grams right out the bat. And then I always have one post-workout for the recoverability part. Remember, I told you that's key, especially for someone like me. That's 100 grams. And take that 200 number, divide it by 2. Half of that's gone. You have the rest of the day, whether it's 2 meals, 3 meals, 5 meals, 6, for you to divvy up the remainder of that. And you want most of your protein, if not half, at least half, coming from nutritional. That's lean cuts of meat. That's fibrous, tasty and nutritious vegetables, whole grain. That's going to keep you satiated. It's going to keep you feeling well. And that is the hack. That's literally it. And it's not to overcomplicate it. I thought putting it into the 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, we can all count up to 3. We all know the method, and then we know what that means. So if you measure everything, where you're at, know where you're going, you move more. And so that's the exercise. You just start by moving. Then you can start implementing plans and workout approaches that work and suit you best. Whether you're busy, whether you're sedentary, whatever it is, if you put that at the top of your priority, the weight will drop. And then lastly, when it comes to the nutritional approach, if you prioritize the protein, by doing that, protein is very satiating, recoverability, and the muscle to go along with that movement that you're doing. And it also, as a bonus feature, it also takes it, so that takes a big bulk of your calories. And if you're full, you're not going to want to eat some of those yummy carbs that are quick and not satiating. And a lot of it's junk calories. By junk calories, meaning it's not really adding to anything else. You want your calories to be key. You want them to be added to your day-to-day goal. And if you're doing all this, you're budgeting right, you're budgeting calories right, you're budgeting your money right, you can do both things. You can have an amazing transformation. And on top of that, you can afford that $1 million trip to Disneyland at the end of the day because you start appropriating your money the way it's supposed to be. You start saving, cut out the wasteful spending, and you start applying things where they need it to be. That's key. And see, I had this whole thing set up. I was going to draw on there. I just went on a tangent, but I thought it would be easy, not easy. And I'm going to stop sharing that. I thought it'd be beneficial to open this up, hit those 3 steps. And that's core simplified, but that's where the personalization comes in. So that's 2 people. If one person is a high powered attorney and has access to more resources, then the way they allocate their spending, the way they budget, and the way they change their spending habits is going to be a lot different from someone like Coach Kia, who works for the city as a fireman and limited amount of overtime. And I do a lot of this. So our approaches are going to be different given those constraints. So I hope you found that valuable. I hope you learned something new, and leave a comment at the bottom of this video because I'm going to be posting this video. Leave it at the bottom of this video if you have questions, comments to add them here, and then we can address those directly.